Warrior of the Light, a Manual by Paulo Coelho. Author's note: with the exception of the prologue and the epilogue, the material contained in this book was first published in a column entitled Maktub, which appeared in Folha de Sao Paulo between 1993 and 1996, as well as in various other newspapers in Brazil and elsewhere. Hail Mary, conceived without sin. Pray for those who turn to you. Amen. The disciple is not above his master, but everyone that is perfect shall be as his master. Luke 6, chapter 6, verse 40. Prologue. Just off the beach to the west of the village lies an island, and on it is a vast temple with many bells, said the woman. The boy noticed that she was dressed strangely and had a veil covering her head. He had never seen her before. Have you ever visited the temple? She asked. Go there and tell me what you think of it. Seduced by the woman's beauty, the boy went to the place she had indicated. He sat down on the beach and stared out at the horizon, but he saw only what he always saw: blue sky and ocean. Disappointed, he walked to a nearby fishing village and asked if anyone there knew about an island and a temple. Oh, that was many years ago, when my great-grandparents were alive, said an old fisherman. There was an earthquake and the island was swallowed up by the sea. But although we can no longer see the island, we can still hear the temple bells when the ocean sets them swinging down below. The boy went back to the beach and tried to hear the bells. He spent the whole afternoon there, but all he heard was the noise of the waves and the cries of the seagulls. When night fell, his parents came looking for him. The following morning, he went back to the beach. He could not believe that such a beautiful woman would have lied to him. If she ever returned, he could tell her that, although he had not seen the island, he had heard the temple bells, set ringing by the motion of the waves. Many months passed. The woman did not return, and the boy forgot all about her. Now he was convinced that he needed to discover the riches and the treasures in the submerged temple. If he could hear the bells, he would be able to locate it and salvage the treasure hidden below. He lost interest in school and even his friends. He became the butt of all the other children's jokes. They used to say, "He is not like us. He prefers to sit looking at the sea because he's afraid of being beaten in our games." And they all laughed to see the boy sitting on the shore. Although he could not hear the old temple bells ringing, the boy learned about other things. He began to realize that he had grown so used to the sound of the waves that he was no longer distracted by them. Soon after that, he became used to the cries of the seagulls, the buzzing of the bees, and the wind blowing amongst the palm trees. 6 months after his first conversation with the woman, the boy could sit there oblivious to all other noises, but he could still not hear the bells from the drowned temple. Fishermen came and talked to him, insisting that they had heard the bells. but the boy never did. Sometime later, however, the fishermen changed their tune. You spend far too much time thinking about the bells beneath the sea. Forget about them and go back to playing with your friends. Perhaps it's only fishermen who can hear them. After almost a year, the boy thought, perhaps they're right. I would do better to grow up and become a fisherman and come down to this beach every morning because I've come to love it here. And he thought too, perhaps it's just another legend and the bells were all shattered during the earthquake and have never rung out since. That afternoon, he decided to go back home. He walked down to the ocean to say goodbye. He looked once more at the natural world around him, and because he was no longer concerned about the bells, he could again smile at the beauty of the seagulls' cries, the roar of the sea, and the wind blowing in the palm trees. Far off, he heard the sound of his friends playing, and he felt glad to think that he would soon resume his childhood games. The boy was happy, and, as only a child can, he felt grateful for being alive. He was sure that he had not wasted his time, for he had learned to contemplate nature and to respect it. Then, because he was listening to the sea, the seagulls, the wind in the palm trees, and the voices of his friends playing, he also heard the first bell, and then another, and another, until to his great joy, all the bells in the drowned temple were ringing. Years later, when he was a grown man, he returned to the village and to the beach of his childhood. He no longer dreamed of finding treasure at the bottom of the sea. Perhaps that had all been a product of his imagination, and he had never really had the submerged bells ring out on one lost childhood afternoon. Even so, he decided he decided to walk for a while along the beach, to listen to the noise of the wind and to the cries of the seagulls. Imagine his surprise when, there on the beach, he saw the woman who had first spoken to him about the island and its temple. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "I was waiting for you," she replied. He noticed that, despite the passing years, the woman looked exactly the same. The veil hiding her hair had not faded with time. She handed him a blue notebook full of blank pages. "Write. A warrior of the light values a child's eyes because they are able to look at the world without bitterness. When he wants to find out if the person beside him is worthy of his trust, he tries to see him as a child would." "What is a warrior of the light?" "You already know that," she replied with a smile. "He is someone capable of understanding the miracle of life, of fighting to the last for something he believes in, and of hearing the bells that the waves set ringing on the seabed." He had never thought of himself as a warrior of the light. The woman seemed to read his thoughts. Everyone is capable of these things, and though no one thinks of himself as a warrior of the light, we all are. He looked at the blank pages in the notebook. The woman smiled again. "Write about the warrior," she said. Warrior of the light. A warrior of the light knows that he has much to be grateful for. Angels help him in his struggle. Celestial forces place each thing in its place, thus allowing him to give it his best. His companions say, "He's so lucky," and the warrior does sometimes achieve things far beyond his capabilities. That is why, at sunset, he kneels and gives thanks for the protective cloak surrounding him. His gratitude, however, is not limited to the spiritual world. He never forgets his friends for their blood mingled with his on the battlefield. A warrior does not need to be reminded of the help given him by others. He is the first to remember, and he makes sure to share with them any rewards he receives. All the world's roads lead to the heart of the warrior. He plunges unhesitatingly to the river of passions always flowing through his life. The warrior knows that he is free to choose his desires, and he makes these decisions with courage, detachment, and sometimes with just a touch of madness. He embraces his passions and enjoys them intensely. He knows that there is no need to renounce the pleasures of conquest. They are part of life and bring joy to all those who participate in them. But he never loses sight of things that last or for the strong bonds forged over time. A warrior can distinguish between the transient and the enduring. A warrior of the light does not rely on strength alone. He makes use of his opponent's energy too. When he enters the fight, all he has is his enthusiasm, the moves and strikes that he learned during his training. As the fight progresses, he discovers that enthusiasm and training are not enough to win. What counts is experience. Then he opens his heart to the universe and asks God to give him the inspiration he needs to turn every blow from his enemy into a lesson in self-defense. His companions say, "He's so superstitious. He stopped fighting in order to pray. He even shows respect for his opponent's tricks." A warrior does not respond to these provocations. He knows that without inspiration and experience, no amount of training will help him. A warrior of the light never resorts to trickery, but he knows how to distract his opponent. No matter how anxious he is, he uses every strategy at his disposal to gain his objective. When he sees that his strength is almost gone, he makes his enemy think that he is simply biding his time. When he needs to attack the right flank, he moves his troops to the left. If he intends beginning the battle at once, he pretends that he is tired and prepares for sleep. His friends say, "Look, he's lost all enthusiasm." But he pays no attention to such remarks because his friends do not understand his tactics. A warrior of the light knows what he wants, and he has no need to waste time on explanations. A wise Chinese man has this to say about the strategies of a warrior of the light. Convince your enemy that he will gain very little by attacking you. This will diminish his enthusiasm. Do not be ashamed to make a temporary withdrawal from the field if you see that your enemy is stronger than you. It is not winning or losing a single battle that matters, but how the war ends. Even if you are very strong, never be ashamed to feign weakness. This will make your enemy act imprudently and attack too soon. In war, the key to victory is the ability to surprise one's opponent. It's odd, the warrior of the light says to himself. I have met so many people who, at the first opportunity, try to show their very worst qualities. They hide their inner strength behind aggression and hide their fear of loneliness behind an air of independence. They do not believe in their own abilities, but are constantly trumpeting their virtues. A warrior reads these messages in many of the men and women he meets. He is never taken by appearances and makes a point of remaining silent when people try to impress him. He uses these occasions to correct his own faults, for other people make an excellent mirror. A warrior takes every opportunity to teach himself. The warrior of the light sometimes fights with those he loves. The man who defends his friends is never overwhelmed by the storms of life. He is strong enough to come through difficulties and carry on. He does, however, often face challenges from those he is trying to teach the art of the sword. His disciples provoke him into fighting with them, and the warrior demonstrates his abilities. With just a few blows, he disarms his students, and harmony returns to the place where they meet. Why bother to do that when you are so much better than they are? Asks a traveler. Because in challenging me, what they really want is to talk to me, and this is my way of keeping the dialogue open, replies the warrior. Before embarking on an important battle, a warrior of the light asks himself, how far have I developed my abilities? He knows that he has learned something with every battle he has fought, but many of those lessons have caused him unnecessary suffering. More than once, he has wasted his time fighting for a lie, and he has suffered for people who did not deserve his love. Victors never make the same mistake twice. That is why the warrior only risks his heart for something worthwhile. A warrior of the light respects the main teaching of the I Ching. To persevere is favorable. He knows that perseverance is not the same thing as insistence. There are times when battles go on longer than necessary, draining him of strength and enthusiasm. At such moments, the warrior thinks, a prolonged war finally destroys the victors too. Then he withdraws his forces from the battlefield and allows himself a respite. He perseveres in his desire, but knows he must wait for the best moment to attack. A warrior always returns to the fray. He never does so out of stubbornness, but because he has noticed a change in the weather. A warrior of the light knows that certain moments repeat themselves. He often finds himself faced by the same problems and situations. And seeing these difficult situations return, he grows depressed, thinking that he is incapable of making any progress in life. I've been through all this before, he says to his heart. Yes, you have been through all this before, replies his heart. But you have never been beyond it. Then the warrior realizes that these repeated experiences have but one aim: to teach him what he does not want to learn. A warrior of the light is never predictable. He might dance down the street on his way to work, gaze into the eyes of a complete stranger and speak of love at first sight, or defend an apparently absurd idea. Warriors of the light allow themselves days like these. He is not afraid to weep over ancient sorrows or feel joy at new discoveries. When he feels that the moment has arrived, he drops everything and goes off on some long dreamed of adventure. When he realizes that he can do no more, he abandons the fight, but never blames himself for having committed a few unexpected acts of folly. A warrior does not spend his days trying to play the role that others have chosen for him. Warriors of the light always have a certain gleam in their eyes. They are of this world. They are part of the lives of other people, and they set out on their journey with no saddlebags and no sandals. They are often cowardly. They do not always make the right decisions. They suffer over the most trivial things. They have mean thoughts and sometimes believe they're incapable of growing. They frequently deem themselves unworthy of any blessing or miracle. They are not always quite sure of what they're doing here. They spend many sleepless nights believing that their lives have no meaning. That is why they are warriors of the light. Because they make mistakes, because they ask themselves questions, because they are looking for a reason they are sure to find it. The warrior of the light does not worry that, to others, his behavior might seem quite mad. He talks aloud to himself when he is alone. Someone told him that this is the best way of communicating with the angels, and so he takes a chance and tries to make contact. At first, he finds this very difficult. He thinks that he has nothing to say, that he will just repeat the same meaningless twaddle. Even so, the warrior persists. He spends all day talking to his heart. He says things with which he does not agree. He talks utter nonsense. One day, he notices a change in his voice. He realizes that he is acting as a channel for some higher wisdom. The warrior may seem mad, but this is just a disguise. According to a poet, the warrior of the light chooses his enemies. He knows what he is capable of. He does not have to go about the world boasting of his qualities and virtues. Nevertheless, There is always someone who wants to prove himself better than he is. For the warrior, there is no better or worse. Everyone has the necessary gifts for his particular path. But certain people insist. They provoke and offend and do everything they can to irritate him. At that point, his heart says, do not respond to these insults. They will not increase your abilities. They will tire yourself. You will tire yourself needlessly. A warrior of the light does not waste his time listening to provocations. He has a destiny to fulfill. The warrior of the light remembers a passage from John Bunyan. Quote, although I have been through all that I have, I do not regret the many hardships I met, because it was they who brought me to the place I wished to reach. Now all I have is this sword, and I give it to whoever wishes to continue his pilgrimage. I carry with me the marks and the scars of battle. They are the weaknesses of what I have suffered and the rewards of what I have conquered. They are the beloved marks and scars that will open the gates of paradise to me. There was a time when I used to listen to the tales of bravery. There was a time when I lived only because I needed to live. But now I live because I am a warrior, and because I wish one day to be in the company of him for whom I have fought so hard. Unquote. The moment that he begins to walk along it, the warrior of the light recognizes the path. Each stone, each bend cries welcome to him. He identifies with the mountains and the streams. He sees something of his own soul in the plants and the animals and the birds of the field. Then, accepting the help of God and of God's signs, he allows his personal legend to guide him towards the task that life has reserved for him. On some nights, he has nowhere to sleep. On others, he suffers from insomnia. That's just how it is, he thinks. I was the one who chose to walk this path. In these words lies all his power. He chose the path along which he is walking, and so has no complaints. From now on, and for the next few hundred years, the universe is going to help warriors of the light and hinder the prejudice. The earth's energy needs to be renewed. New ideas need space. Body and soul need new challenges. The future has become the present, and every dream, except those dreams that involve preconceived ideas, will have a chance to be heard. Anything of importance will remain. Anything useless will disappear. It is not the warrior's responsibility, however, to judge the dreams of others, and he does not waste time criticizing other people's decisions. In order to have faith in his own path, he does not need to prove that someone else's path is wrong. A warrior of the light carefully studies the position that he intends to conquer. However difficult the objective, there is always a way of overcoming obstacles. He seeks out alternative paths. He sharpens his sword. He tries to fill his heart with the necessary determination to face the challenge. But as he advances, the warrior realizes that there are difficulties he had not reckoned with. If he waits for the ideal moment, he will never set off. The warrior requires a touch of madness to take the next step. The warrior uses that touch of madness, for in both love and war, it is impossible to foresee everything. A warrior of the light knows his own faults, but he also knows his qualities. Some of his companions complain all the time that other people have more opportunities than we do. Perhaps they are right, but a warrior does not allow himself to be paralyzed by this. He tries to make the most of his virtues. He knows that the gazelle's power lies in its strong legs. The power of the seagull lies in the accuracy with which it can spear a fish. He has learned that the reason the tiger does not fear the hyena is because he is aware of his own strength. He tries to establish what he can truly rely on. And he always checks that he carries three things with him: faith, hope, and love. If these three things are there, he does not hesitate to go forward. The warrior of the light knows that no one is stupid and that life teaches everyone, however long that may take. He always does his best and expects the best of others. Through his generosity, he tries to show each person how much they are capable of achieving. Some of his companions say, "Some people are so ungrateful." The warrior is not discouraged by this, and he continues to encourage others because this is also a way of encouraging himself. Every warrior of the light has felt afraid of going into battle. Every warrior of the light has, at some point in the past, lied or betrayed someone. Every warrior of the light has trodden a path that was not his. Every warrior of the light has suffered for the most trivial reasons. Every warrior of the light has, at least once, believed that he was not a warrior of the light. Every warrior of the light has failed in his spiritual duties. Every warrior of the light has said yes when he wanted to say no. Every warrior of the light has hurt someone he loved. That is why he is a warrior of the light, because he has been through all this and yet has never lost hope of being better than he is. The warrior always listens to the words of certain thinkers such as these by T.H. Huxley. Quote, "The consequences of our actions are the scarecrows of fools and the beacons of wise men." The chessboard is the world. The pieces are the gestures of our daily lives. The rules of the game are what we call laws of nature. The player on the other side is hidden from us, but we know that his play is always fair, just, and patient. Unquote. The warrior simply has to accept the challenge. He knows that God never overlooks a single mistake made by those he loves, nor does he allow his favorites to pretend ignorance of the rules of the game. A warrior of the light does not postpone making decisions. He thinks a great deal before taking action. He considers his training as well as his responsibilities and duties as a teacher. He tries to remain calm and to analyze each step as if it was of supreme importance. However, as soon as he has made a decision, the warrior proceeds. He has no doubts about his chosen action, nor does he change direction if circumstances turn out differently from how he had imagined them. If his decision is correct, he will win the battle, even if it lasts longer than expected. If his decision is wrong, he will be defeated and he will have to start all over again, only this time with more wisdom. But once he has started, a warrior of the light perseveres until the end. A warrior knows that his best teachers are the people with whom he shares the battlefield. It is dangerous to ask for advice. It is even more dangerous to give advice. When he needs help, he tries to see how his friends resolve or fail to resolve their problems. If he is in search of inspiration, he reads on the lips of his neighbor the words that his guardian angel is trying to say to him. When he is tired or lonely, he does not dream about distant men and women. He turns to the person beside him and he shares his sorrow or his need for affection with them, with pleasure and without guilt. A warrior knows that the farthest flying star in the universe reveals itself in the things around him. A warrior of the light shares his world with the people he loves. He tries to encourage them to do the things they would like to do, but for which they lack the courage. At such times, the enemy appears holding two wooden signs in his hand. On one sign is written, "Think about yourself, keep all the blessings for yourself, otherwise you'll end up losing everything." On the other sign, he reads, "Who do you think you are, helping other people? Can't you see your own faults?" A warrior knows that he has faults, but he knows too that he cannot do his growing alone, distanced from his companions. Therefore, he throws the two signs to the floor, even if he thinks they may contain a grain of truth. The signs crumble into dust, and the warrior continues to encourage those nearest him. The philosopher Lao Tzu says of the journey of the warrior of the light, quote, "The way involves respect for all small and subtle things. Learn to recognize the right moment to adopt the necessary attitudes. Even if you have already fired a bow several times, Continue to pay attention to how you position the arrow and how you flex the string. When a beginner knows what he needs, he proves more intelligent than an absent-minded sage. Accumulating love brings luck. Accumulating hatred brings calamity. Anyone who fails to recognize problems leaves the door open for tragedies to rush in. The battle is not the same as the quarrel. Unquote. The warrior of the light meditates. He sits in a quiet place in his tent and surrenders himself to the divine light. When he does this, he tries not to think about anything. He shuts himself off from the search for pleasure, from challenges and revelations, and allows his gifts and powers to reveal themselves. Even if he does not recognize them then, these gifts and powers will take care of his life and will influence his day-to-day existence. While he meditates, the warrior is not himself, but a spark from the soul of the world. Meditation gives him an understanding of his responsibilities and of how he should behave accordingly. A warrior of the light knows that in the silence of his heart, he will hear an order that will guide him. When I draw my bow, says Herigel to his Zen master, there comes a point when I feel as if I will get breathless if I do not let fly at once. If you continue to try to provoke the moment when you must release the arrow, you will never learn the art of the archer, says his master. Sometimes it is the archer's own overactive desire that ruins the accuracy of the shot. A warrior of the light sometimes thinks, if I do not do something, it will not be done. It is not quite like that. He must act, but he must allow room for the universe to act too. When a warrior is the victim of some injustice, he usually tries to be alone in order not to show his pain to others. This is both good and bad. It is one thing to allow one's heart to heal its wounds slowly, but it is quite another to sit all day in deep contemplation for fear of seeming weak. Inside each of us, there lives an angel and a devil, and their voices are very alike. Confronted by a problem, the devil encourages that solitary conversation, tries to show us how vulnerable we are. The angel makes us reflect upon our attitudes and occasionally needs someone else's heart to reveal itself. A warrior balances solitude and dependence. A warrior of the light needs love. And love and affection are as much a part of his nature as eating, drinking, and a taste for the good fight. When the warrior watches a sunset and feels no joy, then something is wrong. At this point, he stops fighting and goes in search of company so that they can watch the setting sun together. If he has difficulty in finding company, he asks himself, was I too afraid to approach someone? Did I receive affection and not even notice? A warrior of the light makes use of solitude, but is not used by it. The warrior of the light knows that it is impossible to live in a state of complete relaxation. He has learned from the archer that, in order to shoot his arrow any distance, he must hold the bow taut. He has learned from the stars that only an inner explosion allows them to shine. The warrior notices that when a horse is about to jump over a fence, it tenses all its muscles. But he never confuses tension with anxiety. The warrior of the light always manages to balance rigor and mercy. To attain his dream, he needs a strong will and an enormous capacity for acceptance. Although he may have an objective, the path that leads that objective is not always as he imagined it would be. That is why the warrior uses a mixture of discipline and compassion. God never abandons his children, but his purposes are unfathomable, and he builds the road with our own steps. The warrior uses that combination of discipline and acceptance to fuel his enthusiasm. Routine was never the leader of any important new movement. The warrior of the light sometimes behaves like water, flowing around the obstacles he encounters. Occasionally, resistance might mean distraction, and so he adapts to the circumstances. He accepts without complaint that the stones in his path hinder his way through the mountains. Therein lies the strength of water. It cannot be touched by a hammer or ripped to shreds by a knife. The strongest sword in the world cannot scar its surface. The river adapts itself to whatever route proves possible, but the river never forgets its one objective, the sea. So fragile at its source, it gradually gathers the strength of the other rivers it encounters. And after a certain point, its power is absolute. For the warrior of the light, there are no abstractions. Everything is concrete and everything is meaningful. He does not sit comfortably in his tent, observing what is going on in the world. He accepts each challenge as an opportunity to transform himself. Some of his companions spend their lives mourning about the lack of choice or passing comment on the decisions made by other people. The warrior, however, transforms his thinking into action. Sometimes he chooses the wrong goal and pays the price for his mistake without complaint. At others, he swerves from the path and wastes a great deal of time, only to end up back where he started. But the warrior never allows himself to be discouraged. The warrior of the light has the qualities of a rock. When he is on a flat terrain, everything around him is in harmony and he remains stable. People can build their houses upon him and the storm will not destroy them. When, however, he is placed on a slope and the things around him show neither balance nor respect, then he reveals his strength. He rolls towards the enemy that is threatening his peace. At such moments, the warrior is a devastating force, and no one can stop him. A warrior of the light thinks about both war and peace. and knows how to act in accordance with the circumstances. A warrior of the light who trusts too much in his intelligence will end up underestimating the power of his opponent. It is important not to forget that sometimes strength is more effective than strategy. A bullfight is over quickly because the bull quickly learns that it is being tricked, and its next step is to charge the bullfighter. When that happens, no amount of brilliance, argument, intelligence, or charm can avert tragedy. That is why the warrior never underestimates brute force. When it proves too violent, he withdraws from the battlefield until his enemy has exhausted himself.